James, and the royal family is said to be holding private remembrances today.
Not public. That's what's making news in America. Have a great day.
It's Wednesday, August 31st, and the battleground states are officially ready for battle. We start here.
Can't be pro-law enforcement and pro-insurrection.
President Biden starts a full-court press for the midterms.
This is a battleground within a battleground, so to speak.
But former President Trump is hitting the road, too. In fact, the exact same road. There's water everywhere in Jackson, Mississippi, and not a drop to drink.
Can you shower? Can you flush the toilet? What can you do?
Ain't nothing we can do.
Residents can't get enough water for their faucets, let alone a fire hose. We'll take you to a city on the brink. And you've probably never seen the ice of Greenland, but Greenland's ice is coming to you.
You can, hear the melting.
A new study says oceans could rise by nearly a foot as a nation melts away. From ABC News, this is Start Here. I'm Brad Milkey. Earlier this summer, everyone, Democrat, Republican, everyone in Washington, was getting ready for a blowout in the midterms. Many expected Republicans would cruise to victory in the House. They would probably retake the Senate. President Biden was just too unpopular to keep his hold on the Capitol, the thinking went.
With 6 months to the midterms, the president is facing a very real host of serious challenges. His approval rating is still underwater.
Then came the Supreme Court decision on abortion. Suddenly, if Republicans were planning to run on smaller government, Democrats were turning to constituents saying, hey, these guys want bigger government. Polls started to turn.
Federal investigators appear to be turning up the heat on former President Donald Trump.
Then came the raid earlier this month on Mar-a-Lago. And if Republicans were planning on running on being tough on crime, well, here was a former president complaining about law enforcement being too tough on him.
I'm opposed to defunding the police. I'm also opposed to defunding the FBI.
And so yesterday, with a very different political landscape in front of him, President Biden went to Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania to kick off the fall campaign season. And guess what? Former President Trump will be in the same town later this week. Big stakes ramping up in the midterms. Let's get into it with ABC's Deputy Political Director, Avery Harper. Avery, what did you hear from President Biden here?
Right. Well, we heard a very fired up President Biden on the road in a critical battleground, talking to these swing voters.
When it comes to public safety in this nation, the answer is not defund the police. It's fund the police. Fund the police.
A message that leaned heavy into the defense of the Second Amendment, but desire on his part to ban assault weapons. It is a real message centered on public safety.
I signed into law the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, the most significant gun safety law we passed in 30 years.
And it's important to note, Brad, Wilkes-Barre and Luzerne County, where Wilkes-Barre is what we call a pivot county. So that's a county that went for Barack Obama in both 2008 and 2012, and then swung hard for Trump in both 2016 and 2020. So this is a battleground within a battleground, so to speak.
It's time to hold every elected official's feet to the fire and ask them, are you for banning assault weapons, yes or no? Ask them. The answer is no. Vote against them.
And so we're going to see both parties fighting hard for support there come November.
Yeah, can you walk us through President Biden's strategy on addressing crime here? Because if we saw a kind of, defensive president several months ago, he seems pretty comfortable all of a sudden hammering away at the GOP on crime specifically.
Right. We definitely saw a countering of the message that we have heard from Republicans for months now, right? That Democrats are soft on crime.
You can't be pro-law enforcement and pro-insurrection. You can't be a party of law and order and call the people who attacked the police on January 6th patriots.
We heard President Biden specifically say that he wants to fund the police. We heard the president speak a little bit to the notion of there being bad apples or lousy police officers, as he said in these remarks that he gave in Wilkes-Barre, but not the same verve as we have previously heard him in terms of tackling and addressing police reform. And, you have to remember, this is a president who said that Black voters were the backbone of the party and they were the backbone of the support, actually got a lot of credit for sending President Biden to the White House. And so in these messages, I think we're hearing him sort of appeal to the middle, to moderate voters, to the voters he believes that he is going to need in order to come away successful in November.
Right. We've seen the White House also embrace, the student loan angle here. A lot of optimism seemingly coming from the White House. President Biden makes another big speech later this week in Philly. Well, then, Avery, former President Trump comes to Pennsylvania on Saturday. What are you expecting from Trump? And how does this position the Republican Party?
Well, this is a county where we know President Trump has a lot of support. He won here in both 2020 and 2016. I think we're going to see a lot of preaching to the choir when former President Trump addresses that crowd.
It's great to be back in this beautiful Commonwealth with thousands of proud, hardworking American patriots.
This is going to be his first big midterm rally, since the August 8th Mar-a-Lago raid. So I anticipate that we will hear him speak about that. I anticipate that we're going to continue to see what former President Trump has done all along, which is attempt to relitigate 2020, but at the same time urging folks to support his choices for some really important offices in Pennsylvania.
They like to call people who stand on the Constitution far right and extreme. I repudiate that.
Doug Mastriano for governor, for Senate, Mehmet Oz, we're going to see him tout those endorsements that he made. He wants to see these folks win. And these are going to be folks who are going to be in positions, if Mastriano should win for governor, he could appoint whoever is going to run elections in that state. So these are critically important roles for President Trump if he continues to want to wield his influence, right? If he wants folks to be in position to do what he wanted back in 2020, which was to overturn election results, it is important for him to get his choices into office.
Right. And the question in 2016, 2020, again here in 2022 is, are President Trump's interests aligned with the larger GOP interests? But obviously, candidates' fortunes really intertwined here. We'll see what happens. Avery Harper, thank you.
Thank you.
Next up on Start Here, the flooding has subsided, but now Jackson, Mississippi is really in over its head. We'll take you there after the break.
This is ABC News Live.
The crush of families here in Poland.
At refugee centers
in Putin's Russia.
On the ground in Ukraine.
Close to the front line.
Here at the White House.
Destructive Cat 4 storm.
Here along I-5.
Boston is in the bullseye.
Let's go. We made it.
ABC News Live, America's #1 streaming news. Anytime, anywhere. Streaming 24/7 straight to you for free.
Thank you for making ABC News Live America's #1 streaming news.
Bring them on. If only there was a place in the morning to start my day. With a smile, somewhere to help me get in the know. A place as spectacular as, well, me.
I think we might know a place, right, guys?
Bring your friends. Oh, wait, there is.
Good morning, America.
GMA, 7A, every day. Boom. Boom. Boom.
Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Robin. Good morning, America. How are you?
Boom. Now that's how you start your day, people.
All right, here we go. You ready? Let's do it.
Yes, it's the show America wants and America needs right now.
This is What Would You Do? Let's go. How are you?
Yeah. So what will you be watching Saturdays on ABC News Live?
What would you do?
Hey, I guess I just found out.
The What Would You Do Marathon, 12 to 6 Eastern, every Saturday on ABC News Live.
My favorite show.
America is being poisoned with fentanyl, and we don't even know it.
Just heard my wife screaming. She told me they had just died.
50 to 100 times more potent than morphine.
Keep breathing, come on. It's poison, it's pure poison.
A few grains of salt worth of fentanyl will kill you.
Just my agency has seized enough to kill the entire country.
ABC News Live presents Poisoned, America's Fentanyl Crisis. The powerful series, streaming free on ABC News Live.
The hottest views in daytime are happening right here.
We talk about things on this show that people don't talk about.
That I can't wait to see. Honest takes from strong women. We need all hands on deck, and we need it right now. This is the time to speak out. Unafraid to get real.
We stick by our points of view.
We're all seeing it differently, and that's the beauty of The View.
And that's why the most watched #1 daytime talk show is The View. Now streaming on ABC News Live.
As of today, in a big way, we have inaugurated abcnews.com.
A lot has changed in our world since Peter made that announcement. But what hasn't changed is the commitment to groundbreaking reporting and innovation at abcnews.com. And here's to everything ahead.
This is ABC News Live Prime.
Thanks so much for streaming with us.
Live reporting, breaking news, exclusives, award-winning, powerful, eye-opening. ABC News Live Prime with Lindsay Davis. Streaming weeknights. Right now, with so much at stake, Sunday mornings, this is the place. Taking on the tough questions with straightforward reporting. Thank you for making ABC's This Week with George the #1 Sunday morning news show versus the competition.
Welcome to This Week.
With so much at stake, so much on the line, more Americans turn here than any other newscast. ABC News World News Tonight with David Muir, America's #1 most watched newscast across all of television.
It was an extraordinary story.
A computer salesman was supposed to report to prison to begin a 17-year sentence.
They let him turn himself into jail with no escort.
No one thought he would run.
How do you evade capture for 25 years? How do you do that?
Now, join the search, following the U.S. Marshals as they uncover new leads in a global manhunt. Can you help catch this fugitive?
Have you seen this man?
Have you seen this man?
Have you seen this man? Listen and join the all-new hunt wherever you get your podcast.
ABC News, honored for excellence with 41 Emmy nominations, the most of any news organization anywhere. Thank you for making ABC News America's #1 news.
We talked yesterday about how waters have finally crested in Jackson, Mississippi after days of absolutely devastating floods.
We continue to see volunteers, firefighters, even state troopers coming in to help pull out whatever they can.
And almost taunting these residents is the fact that amid all this water, they are unable to get drinkable water out of the tap.
I have said on multiple occasions that it's not a matter of if our system would fail, but a matter of when our system would fail.
Well, then there were new developments in which local officials said this has now gone from bad to worse. ABC's Trevor Ault is still in Jackson, Mississippi. He joins us again this morning. Trevor, you told us yesterday floods had hit the city's main water treatment facility, but now it sounds like it's reached even more of a breaking point. What's happening there?
Yeah, Brett, I regret to inform you things are a lot worse than when we spoke just 24 hours ago. So essentially, the people of Jackson have gone from having to boil their water in order to drink it to now, in many cases, having no water at all.
The city cannot produce enough water to fight fires, to reliably flush toilets, and to meet other critical needs.
What we learned from the governor of Mississippi is that the main pump at the main water treatment plant in Jackson malfunction. It doesn't work at all. Then on top of these floodwaters coming into the Barnett Reservoir, we saw this treatment plant essentially shut down entirely. And so now in most cases, for up to 180,000 impacted residents, there is little to no water pressure coming out of any of their faucets, coming out of any of their showers, their sinks.
Do not drink the water. In too many cases, it is raw water from the reservoir being pushed through the pipes.
Instead, what you're getting is either an empty tap or you are getting completely untreated water from that reservoir, the same thing that was flooding down the street, being pushed through your pipes. So now it's not treated water that's not quite safe enough to drink. It is raw water from outside.
I'm frustrated. I guess there are no easy fixes. It should have been addressed a long time ago. And
we were, make no mistake, already in a water crisis here in Jackson, but this thing has escalated to the next level here, and we're starting to see the government to try to get involved, to try to fix it as quickly as they can, but it's going to be several days here where people could have absolutely no water.
Wait, yeah, how did it get this bad? What do you mean? I get that water might not be treated. I get there might not be a lot of pressure. How do you just have no water at all?
Yeah, well, essentially, a whole lot has gone wrong in Jackson over many, many years.
Possibly 30 years or more of deferred maintenance, a lack of capital improvements made to the system, a lack of a human capital, a workforce plan.
So you already had the flawed infrastructure, which is well documented. You have the 2020 EPA report saying that there is problems with all the lead pipes that have been installed, that there's too few staff, that the staff that they have are not trained well enough.
I was briefed by the State Health Department on the discovery that Jackson's main water treatment facility has been operating with zero redundancies.
On top of that, what we've learned from the government now is that this water treatment plant was operating with no redundancy. And what that means is that if any part of it went down, they had no backup for it. And then a gigantic part of it went down. And so the governor admitted they were told soon the water treatment plant was going to basically run out of the ability to filter water and get it out to the general public. And because we had those floods, it basically overloaded the treatment plant. It got here even sooner than they were expecting. And now you have people who were, a lot of them evacuating from these floodwaters, many of them preparing to stay inside as long as they could. And now they have absolutely no water to speak of. And I got to tell you, Brett, I was at a water distribution site because they're now having to provide bottled water for every resident in the city.
Just got a call from a concerned citizen, says, hey, he's trying to find out where. I said, follow the crowd. So it's an idea.
It took them an hour and a half to go through their entire stock, 600 cases, 1 case per vehicle. And when they were done, after that hour and a half, there was still a line of people a half a mile long who got turned away.
It's been going on too long now. This is not the first time for this.
Yeah, you said this has happened a couple times for you.
Yes.
Do you think they'll ever fix it?
Hopefully they do, but it's taking too long.
There are problems here beneath the dirt in Jackson. It could cost tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars to get this completely fixed. And while the state is trying to do emergency maintenance, they very well will get it back online within a couple days. That's going to be a Band-Aid for a broken system in Jackson. Can you shower? Can you flush the toilet? What can you do?
Ain't nothing we can do.
I mean, I spoke with one woman, Cora Williams, who told me that she was there because she needed water for herself and her 2 grandchildren who live with her.
A couple bottles up, they didn't give us a little case bag like this. And I said, man, what we gonna do with that? 24.
She was hoping, she was praying that they were going to give her more than 1 case, even though that was just never going to happen. She got her 1 case, which is great, and it's very generous of the people that were able to distribute it. But that means she's got 24 bottles of water for her and her 2 grandchildren, for which they have to bathe, for which they have to brush their teeth, for which they have to stay hydrated at a time when it is 90 degrees outside and humid. And not to mention a lack of water pressure in a lot of buildings means that they can't run their air conditioners too. Can you keep living like this?
No.
What do you want them to do?
Fix it. Fix everything. There's water, fix the streets, everything.
This is problems cascading, top to bottom. And it goes all the way, and that it impacts gigantic organizations, it impacts entire school districts, and it impacts every single individual, just like Cora.
Wow, and as these people are also trying to recover from a natural disaster that's rocked so many households. Trevor, glad you're there in Jackson, Mississippi. Thank you.
Thank you, Brett.
The situation in Mississippi, of course, was made worse by the fact that it's just an easier place to flood right now. Drought has meant the ground is not soaking up as much water. On the coasts, meanwhile, floods are also going to be more likely in places where the baseline water level is just higher. If sea level is further up, it'll take that much less storm surge to creep up your coastline and flood your town. Well, earlier this week, a new study came out positing a scary scenario in which melted ice from Greenland, just Greenland itself, which holds more than 10% of the Earth's ice, could single-handedly raise ocean levels by nearly a foot. The entire country is melting quickly. We've got the lead author of the study to tell us when this will happen. Let's take you to Greenland. Jason Box is a professor of glaciology and climate at the Geological Survey of Denmark and Greenland. So, Professor Box, you're still there on Greenland. What is it like there? Can you see it melting away?
Oh, yeah. You can, hear the melting. We were just up on the ice. It's like what I imagine being on the moon is like. It's kind of bright white. All this water just draining into all these cracks around you. It is crunching under your feet. It's not all that cold. This is the melt season, and it's elevated. So we actually fly up with a helicopter, land. You're above the clouds. You know, it's down here on the coast where I am right now. It's kind of rainy and foggy, but we go up through the clouds onto this kind of ice plateau, ice as far as the eye can see, and it's melting.
Well, and so then let's talk about your study. How much is it melting? Like, what are the numbers telling you?
So even if the climate stayed constant at the last 20-year average, the sea level contribution is at least 27 centimeters, something like 10 inches.
Wow.
And that's actually a very conservative lower bound limit. It's in the pipeline, guaranteed, no matter if we follow the Paris climate scenario with reduced carbon emissions or a high emission scenario. This is locked in, and it will grow. It's normal for ice to melt in summer. What's not normal is that the melt is starting earlier. It's sometimes, it's stronger than average. In fact, the rate of melting in the place I just was today has doubled in the last 50 years.
Wait, so you're saying, like, if we magically stopped all emissions from humans right now, like best case scenario, the ocean level would only rise by 10 inches? And that, like, just from Greenland, forget Antarctica, forget everything else. And that's by when?
Yeah, we stack up a number of existing studies that are based on observations and conclude that the majority of that sea level commitment will be delivered this century. And that's just the sea level commitment up to the year 2019. As climate continues warming, the sea level commitment will continue growing.
And would that be 10 inches higher, like, everywhere? Like, if someone lives near sea level right now, should they just go out to the closest spot where water meets land and, like, mark 10 inches above that? That's where the water will be?
Actually, most of the sea rise, about 30% more is in the tropics, because those billions of tons of ice that is exiting the polar region actually changes the gravity fields of the planet slightly. So you get 30% more sea level rise around the tropics. And yeah.
What is that going to mean for cities, for coastlines around the world when we talk about that much water being displaced and reallocated? Is there a sense of what that will look like?
It means that there'll be a lot of coastal infrastructure that eventually will need to be forfeit. And that includes, hundreds of major cities.
Wait, forfeited like goodbye.
Yeah, because if there's a concentration of coastal assets and, say, cultural heritage, then we'll end up spending money to manage sea level rise. And so in those high concentrated areas of high value real estate, if you will, the sea rise will be prevented by the construction of seawalls and pumps running around the clock, like is already the case in around Miami, for example. But in areas of low concentration infrastructure, we'll have to forfeit those because the cost-benefit analysis won't support investing these, coastal infrastructure is very expensive, of course. And, and then you have to think of, say, the developing world or the global south, where there's less budget to do the resilience.
Fast forward to 2050, what is the reality in the Maldives? Are you willing to take the Maldives as climate refugees? And I think that's the conversation that needs to happen.
There's a lot of inequality built into the climate change issue because the rich nations and rich people are contributing more to the issue, and they can actually afford to deal with whatever investments to safeguard themselves, yet the poor nations and individuals less responsible in general will bear the brunt of that.
Right, because you're already hearing about big cities, big U.S. cities building seawalls and taking all these other measures. Other countries are literally just talking about becoming smaller as we speak. Professor Jason Box on that shrinking ice sheet that is Greenland. Thank you so much.
Good to be here.
And one last thing. love a good dessert, big fan of a sweet treat, but whether it's a brownie, a milkshake, or a cup of hot cocoa, it's not the same without a big dollop of whipped cream. Well, recently, many New York State residents started reporting their local grocery stores had shut down sales of whipped cream to shoppers under 21.
And he's on the phone with me like, Mom, theoretically, I could be drafted for the military, but I can't buy whipped cream.
This blew up faster than, well, some whipped cream that puffs up as it leaves the can. And it all goes back to a law that was passed almost a year ago.
It's 137, no's 8.
The bill is passed.
Now, this law does not say whipped cream is illegal. It says no one can sell a whipped cream charger to someone under the age of 21. What's a whipped cream charger? Well, it's this little metal tube full of nitrous oxide, which can be used to fluff up whipped cream right as it's served. It can also be used as a recreational drug. You've heard of whippets? People get high sucking on this nitrous, hence the age restriction on those tiny little steel canisters. In the last few weeks, though, a grocery store trade group started warning New York grocery stores that they should be carting for aluminum whipped cream dispensers. In the internet age, this morphed into Ready Whip is age restricted.
So New York had to pass a law that people under 21 cannot buy whipped cream anymore.
This is yet another perfect example of how the government tries to handle things it doesn't like.
Within days, this had left the TikTok rumor mill and had entered the refrigerated aisle. Several grocery stores actually began carding customers. But here's the crucial thing to understand. Your average can of whipped cream does not have a whipped cream charger. It doesn't have an extra steel tube inside it. Instead, the nitrous is dissolved into the cream itself. Chargers are just for those nifty whipped cream makers you might see in a fancy kitchen. Facing angry constituents, a state senator who helped get this bill passed sent out an emergency tweet saying, "No one needs to be checking IDs on whipped cream, you guys." And so as of this morning, wherever you are, your pumpkin pie is safe. The story actually began a debate on the Start Here team as to whether whipped cream is good. I'm a fan. Our producer, Jen Newman, says it does not belong on anything. If you want to let us know your dessert preferences, hit us up on Twitter. We're at Start Here ABC. I'm Brad Milkey. See you tomorrow.
America's #1 news, ABC News. Most watched, most trusted, and streaming live to you anytime, anywhere, and free. This is ABC News Live, America's #1 streaming news, free to you 24/7. Watch America's #1 news whenever